Hi guys and girls, it's Zay Baba here, back with another review of headphones. It's been a long while, but I'm back. These are basically in the same price class, maybe $1,000 or €1,000, so it should make for an interesting review. And they're both high quality and much loved around the headphone community. The HD800 is like a well-oiled machine. Everything is thought out, and it's light, it's comfortable, and it's sleek, kind of silvery and futuristic looking. On the other hand, the LCD-2 is heavy and kind of retro looking, almost like something from the 40s or 50s. It almost has a DIY vibe to it. Almost like something made this in their garage or something. Both of these headphones need an amp. You're not going to want to use this out of a phone. Okay, comfort and build quality. The HD800 is very comfortable. It has a huge opening for the ear, so you can move your ear around here any way you want, but I basically almost always push my ear right back here because it makes the sound less trebly and the highs less annoying, because these are very bright headphones, and I'm quite surprised that this hasn't been mentioned all that often, that it has such a huge effect on sound quality and frequency response. The LCD's comfort and build. The materials and the build quality doesn't seem to be all that thought out. There's plastic right here, and this is the weirdest part. There's soft foam on this 2010 model. This is like, it collects dirt and all that kind of thing. It's pretty comfy, but it's not very good for a $1,000 headphone. But the pads are made of lambskin, I believe, and they're quite comfortable and plush. And yeah, I've changed the ear pads for the newer pairs, which are these more plush ones. The originals were lots thinner and not quite as comfy. What can I say about the HD800 that hasn't been said before? Well, let's see. One way to describe this headphone is it's super clean and tight. The resolution and the ability to show details is just the best I've heard yet in a headphone. Just amazing. Actually, they're not that clinical or cold as I thought before, like after reading some reviews. And the sound stage, it's just huge. The music plays way out of your head, which is very nice. The LCD. This one is quite warm, relatively, and it's easy to listen to for longer periods without EQ or anything like that. But the sound stage is much closer to the ears. Basically, the instruments are playing right here, right outside your ears. Right after the Sennheiser, I'd say the LCD sounds quite closed in almost. It's pretty surprising, because I've owned this pair for so long and I haven't noticed it before. The bass, the low frequencies. The HD800 basically has the cleanest and tightest bass I've heard yet. This was the biggest surprise for me, because I thought these were all about treble and mids and soundstage and all that. It stays very snappy and fast, with something like fast kick drum patterns, double kick drum patterns, and it's just beautiful in that regard. Without any EQ, I think these have slightly too little bass. but it's not quite far off from neutral or anything like that. And these take EQ very well, but I'll talk about that later. The bass with the LCD-2. This is basically what these are known for their great bass. But these are not like your bass head, bass cannons or anything like that. These have a neutral-ish amount. If there's a boost, it's only few dBs. The extension into the sub-regions is just great. These go flat all the way down, which is very enjoyable with hip-hop and some fat heavy metal or rock and roll or anything like that. Music that needs big bass, like punchy bass. The punch is the one thing that these really excel at. The punch is much greater than what you get with the HD800. And one thing to mention is that the bass with the LCD is not at all bloomy or something that bothers the mids. It stays quite nice and flat. These are very often compared to the HD650, which I think are a bit too heavy in the mid bass region and kind of too warm for my taste, but I'm more of a sub bass fan myself. Okay, mid-range, mids. The HD800 mids are totally clean. Once again, there's details, details galore. These are like more crispy and snappy than the rounded and more sweet HD600 and 650 or the LCD. There's some dip in the upper mids, which I've corrected with an EQ slightly. But it doesn't really cause a problem even if you don't use EQ. The mids with the LCD, they're very good quality also, and maybe more flat in the frequency range. Basically more balanced in my opinion. There isn't that kind of huge dip that you have with the 800. It's a sweeter tone in my opinion, closer to the HD600. High frequencies. Okay, let's start with the obvious one. This is where the Sennheiser gets lots of flack because of the 6K boost or spike, or what do you want to call it. And yeah, these have lots of treble, not only with the 6K peak. These are trebly headphones without any EQ. But yes, once again, these are just totally clean. There's no graininess, which I think I heard from my HD600. Some sort of slight grain in the treble region. These are just totally clean and not like cold or shrill, as I said. This was a big surprise because I thought these had a huge spike in the highs and some ugliness up there, but I didn't find that. It's just that the level of treble is quite high, so I need the EQ, as I'll explain later. The high frequencies with the LCD, there's more actually than what they're known for. These are not all that dull or rolled off in the highs. There's some sparkle and some sizzle up there. I haven't found any annoying peaks or anything like that with the LCD-2. And yeah, these are more relaxing to listen to, basically because of the treble region. Okay, EQ, equalization. For some reason, I don't know why, but this isn't all that common in audiophile circles. This is quite weird for me. But there's one guy on YouTube that has this thing covered. He's called Metal571. He has a very nicely scientific approach and knowledge about equalization. Check out his channel. He's a cool dude. So yeah, EQ and the HD800. this headphone takes EQ very well. It doesn't get distorted or anything like that, especially in the bass, because if you try to EQ my HD600 and boost the subs, it gets kind of grainy and it doesn't really help with the punch or anything like that. So yeah, I use the EQ sparingly, basically with 1 to 3 dB shifts maybe, nothing crazy. I'm not trying to make this headphone into something completely different. And yes, the HD800 does need EQ in my opinion, because it's quite trebly and bright and all that without it. So here's my EQ graph. It's very simple iTunes 10-band EQ. I have the sub-bass region boosted slightly because of the natural roll-off of a dynamic speaker, which this one has. And the 125 Hz mid-bass, it's lowered because that's my preference basically. I like it that way with lots of headphones. This makes bass more punchy and snappy in my opinion. I'm not a fan of too much warmth in the lows. And the highs are lower just because, you know, these are very bright and too bright. So EQ with the LCD-2, it doesn't really need it. Many people should be okay without any EQ. They're quite okay. But you can get some benefits from it. Sometimes I boost the 4K region a decibel or two just to bring out vocals and the crunch of guitars and snare drums more. And by the way, my equipment, I use an Arkham IR DAC and a sheet Lear with list tubes, so it's all solid state right now. By the way, if you have any recommendations for good, like tubey sounding tubes for the Lear, those would be very welcome. Thanks. So here we are. Which one is the winner? I really can't say. The HD800 really surprised me because I was pretty sure they'd be the number 2 pair. They'd just get less use, and because I've loved the Audeze for many years and they've been my favorites because of the very punchy bass and sweet highs and all that. I'm quite happy to have them both, and they have their places. But yeah, HD800, it has much more potential in pure sound quality, but I think the frequency range is kind of flawed right out of the box. And the LCD-2 is much more plug and play. You just can plug it in and have some fun with your favorite tunes, especially with something that needs good bass and punch. So that's it, guys. You have to decide for yourself in the end. These are two very good headphones. I like them both, but they're very different. And one of these really needs some kind of EQ or something. I'm not a fan of buying some very expensive tube amps or DACs or anything like that to correct these kinds of large spikes and stuff in the frequency range. So yeah, that's what you get. So that's it, folks. Thanks a lot for watching, and see you once again, maybe in the near future. Bye bye.